It was almost midnight when Daniel turned off the television. The house became completely silent. He sat there for a few seconds, staring at the dark screen. Then he looked toward the kitchen. "Mary, did you turn off the light?" He stopped. There was no answer. Daniel slowly smiled at himself. For a moment, he had forgotten. Mary had been gone for 3 years. He was 71 years old, and after 46 years of marriage, he had never learned how to live in a house without her. Daniel got up from his chair and walked toward the kitchen. On the table was a single cup of coffee. His coffee. He had stopped making 2 cups a long time ago. But sometimes, without thinking, he still looked toward the other side of the table. That night, he sat down and opened an old photo album. There was Mary, young, smiling, standing beside him on the day they bought their first little house. Daniel touched the photograph with his finger. "I still miss you," he whispered, his eyes filled with tears. Then he closed the album. The clock on the wall showed 12:17 a.m. Daniel looked around the empty house. His children lived in different states. His son called every Sunday. His daughter tried to call whenever she could. They loved him. Daniel knew that. But still, there were moments when the house felt too quiet. Moments when he wished someone would simply walk through the front door and say, "Dad, I'm home." That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. He walked into the living room and noticed something sitting on the bookshelf, an old Bible. It belonged to Mary. Daniel picked it up. He hadn't opened it in months. He sat down in his chair and slowly turned the pages. Then something caught his attention. A sentence that Mary had underlined years ago. Daniel read it quietly. "I will not leave you as orphans. I will come to you." He stared at those words. Then he laughed softly. Mary used to love this verse. He remembered something. Years earlier, whenever Daniel was worried about money, work, or the children, Mary would say, "Daniel, you're trying to carry everything yourself." And he would reply, "What else am I supposed to do?" Mary would smile. "Give some of it to Jesus." Daniel smiled at the memory. Then suddenly, his smile disappeared. He looked down at the Bible. "Jesus." His voice became weak. "I don't know if you can hear me," he paused. "I've been trying to be strong for everyone." He took a deep breath. "But I'm tired." Daniel looked toward Mary's empty chair. "I miss her." A tear rolled down his cheek. "I miss my children being here." Another tear. "And sometimes," he whispered, "sometimes I feel like nobody needs me anymore." The room was completely silent. Daniel waited. Nothing happened. No voice. No bright light. No miracle. Just silence. But he kept sitting there. And for the first time in years, he stopped pretending that he was okay. He talked to Jesus like he was talking to an old friend. He told him everything. The things he was afraid to tell his children. The things he didn't want anyone to know. How lonely he felt. How much he missed Mary. How scared he was of growing older. How sometimes he wondered what his life was still worth. When Daniel finally finished praying, he looked at the clock. It was almost 1 a.m. He closed the Bible. Then he whispered, "Okay, Jesus, I'll try again tomorrow." He went to bed. And the next morning, something small happened. Something so small that most people would have ignored it. Daniel woke up before sunrise. He walked to the kitchen, made himself a cup of coffee, opened the curtains. And for the first time in a long time, he didn't look at the empty chair. He looked outside. The sun was rising. Daniel stood there quietly. Then he said, "Thank you for another morning." It wasn't that his problems had disappeared. Mary was still gone. His children were still far away. The house was still quiet. But something inside Daniel had changed. He had realized something important. A quiet house does not mean an empty life. And being alone does not always mean being abandoned. Over the next few weeks, Daniel started doing little things differently. Every morning, he opened Mary's Bible. Sometimes he read only a few lines. Sometimes he just sat there. Sometimes he prayed. Sometimes he cried. But he kept coming back. One afternoon, his neighbor's little grandson knocked on his door. The boy was about 8 years old. "Mr. Daniel?" Daniel opened the door. "Yeah, buddy? My grandma said you know how to fix old radios." Daniel laughed. "I used to." The boy held up a broken radio. "Can you fix this?" Daniel looked at the radio. Then he looked at the boy. "Come on in." That afternoon, Daniel spent nearly 2 hours fixing that old radio. The boy watched every move. When the radio finally made a sound, the boy shouted, "It works!" Daniel laughed. "Of course it works." The boy smiled. "You're really good at this." Daniel didn't say anything, but those words stayed with him. That night, Daniel sat in his chair again, and he thought about the little boy. Maybe, he thought, maybe I'm still useful. Maybe God didn't leave me here just to wait for the end. Maybe there are still people I can help. Maybe there are still stories I can tell. Maybe there are still prayers I can pray. And maybe, just maybe, Jesus had been beside him all along, not removing every painful memory, not bringing back the years that had passed, but giving him strength to live the years that remained. Months went by. Daniel started attending a small church near his home. He didn't talk much. He mostly sat in the back. But one Sunday, an elderly woman sat beside him. After the service, she said, "You look like someone carrying a heavy heart." Daniel smiled. "Is it that obvious?" She laughed. "My friend, at our age, we recognize that look." Daniel laughed too. They became friends. And slowly, Daniel discovered something. There were many people just like him. People who smiled in public, but cried when they got home. People whose children lived far away. People who had lost husbands and wives. People who missed the past. People who were afraid of the future. And Daniel began talking to them. He listened. He shared his story. And whenever someone said, "I feel alone," Daniel would smile and say, "I know that feeling." Then he would tell them what he had discovered that night. He would say, being alone isn't the same as being abandoned. And then he would remind them of the words he had found in Mary's Bible. "I will not leave you." Years later, Daniel would still sit in that same chair. The house was still quiet, but it no longer felt empty. There were photographs on the walls, a Bible on the table, a phone that sometimes rang, friends who visited, children who came when they could. And most importantly, there was peace in Daniel's heart. One evening, as the sun was going down, Daniel looked toward Mary's photograph. He smiled. "I think I finally understand," he whispered. "You were right." He looked at the Bible beside him. Jesus really was here. And maybe that's the message someone needs to hear tonight. Maybe you're sitting alone in your home right now. Maybe your children are far away. Maybe you've lost the person who shared most of your life. Maybe the evenings feel longer than they used to. Maybe you sometimes wonder if anyone would notice if you disappeared. Please remember Daniel's story and remember the words of Jesus. "I will not leave you." Your life is not meaningless because you are older. Your story is not finished because your children have grown up. Your value did not disappear with your youth. There are still people who need your wisdom. There are still hearts you can encourage. There are still prayers you can pray. And there may still be chapters of your life that God has not written yet. So tonight, before you go to sleep, look around your room, take a deep breath, and simply say, "Jesus, thank you for staying with me." You don't need a perfect prayer. You don't need perfect words. Just speak from your heart. Because sometimes, the quietest prayer is the one that reaches the deepest place. And when the house becomes silent again, when the lights go out, and you find yourself alone with your thoughts, remember this: you may be alone in the room, but you are not alone in this life. Jesus is still there, and your story is not over.